I want to start off by mentioning this is still an experimental feature and it can be quite clunky at points. Let's start with the basics, pumping, the technique used to generate momentum from a transition. For this example, I'm going to use the half pipe on FDR as the higher sides give you more time than any of the mini ramps or quarter pipes. However, the technique is the same for whatever the object. The aim is to be in a crouched position whilst moving through the transition, so the force of standing is applied at the pinnacle point as you exit the transition. Note how as I roll into the transition, I'm holding the right stick down to crouch and releasing it at the top. As I come back down, I'm holding the left stick to crouch and releasing it at the bottom of the transition. As I approach the other side, I'm holding the left stick down and releasing it at the top. And then I hold the right stick down and release it at the bottom. The timing can take a little getting used to, but a bit of experimenting and you'll get it. Now it's just a case of repeating these two steps until you reach the top of the ramp. Obviously, the bigger the ramp, the more you'll need to pump to get there. If you're struggling to use both sticks to pump, you can change the input mode to front foot, back foot. Changing this means you won't need to swap between sticks. You can always use the right stick as the rear foot and the left stick as the front foot. While practicing, I found it useful to turn up the pump impulse multiplier in the advanced settings menu. You can access the advanced settings menu directly by holding the menu button for a long press. Once you've got the hang of pumping, you can use it whilst travelling over most transitions. I've sped up this clip, but note how I don't push after the start. Admittedly, it's not the cleanest of clips, but it does highlight the point. Now, let's get to the bit we're really interested in, lip tricks. Lip tricks are performed by a combination of inputs via both sticks. Before you can do a lip trick, you need to do a bit of setup, where one stick is pushed up and the other is pulled down. I'll refer to this from now as the starting position. For the regular stance, you'll have the left stick up and the right stick down as your starting position. For the goofy stance, you'll have your left stick down and your right stick up. But of course, if you're using the left foot, right foot input modes, you'll have to change between these inputs depending on what way you're approaching the lip. When applying the controls to enter the starting position, you need to do both inputs at the same time, otherwise you'll do an ollie or an ollie. For all of my examples, I'm going to be pushing into a quarter pipe rather than pumping on a mini ramp. This removes the need for pumping, giving us more time to apply the inputs for the starting position and then the trick itself. However, it's all the same for skating a mini ramp, you just need to be quicker with your inputs. The first thing I'm going to do as I'm rolling into the ramp is get myself into the starting position. This shifts your weight onto the nose and tail of the board like you were going to ollie or nollie. For this first example, I'm going to do a nose stall. What is the same as a nose slide, you just approach at a slight angle to make it slide. As I approach the top of the ramp, I release the input for the rear foot, shifting all of your weight onto the front foot. Timing this correctly and you'll enter a nose stall or slide. Now's probably a good time to talk about exiting stalls. There's three basic methods for exiting the stall. The first method is using the shoulder buttons. However, this will require a bit of experimenting because depending on what trick you're doing and what way you're facing will affect what button you use. That said, some tricks like the 50-50 can use either button, it will just cause you to drop in either regular or switch. The second method uses shifting your weight. This is useful for tricks like rock to fakie, board slides or lip slides, as it lifts the truck over the coping as you re-enter the ramp. And the third method is popping out. When popping out of a lip trick, you'll need to fully release the inputs before reapplying them for the relevant trick you want to do out. In this case, I'm going to use the left shoulder button to drop back in switch/fakie. To enter a nose grind or a 5-0, you need to sweep the sticks from the starting position to the sides like you're going to power slide. However, as you approach the coping, you need to release the relevant stick. If you want to nose grind, you need to release the back foot's input, shifting all of your weight onto the front trucks. To 5-0, you need to release the front foot's inputs to shift all of the weight onto the back truck. To do a tail slide, you would need to do the same inputs for 5-0. However, you need to use the triggers to add some additional rotation, helping you get round onto the tail of the board. The trigger you use depends on what way you're sweeping the tail. With this clip, I'm using the left trigger as I'm sweeping the right stick to the right. If I was sweeping the right stick to the left, I'd use the right trigger. But be careful as it's easy to over rotate and miss the tail slide. Next, let's talk about using both sticks at the same time. For this sort of stall or grind, you need to sweep the sticks from the starting position to the position of that type of grind or slide. Let's take a 50-50 for example. I'll sweep the left stick left and the right stick right to enter a frontside 50-50. Or sweep the left stick right and the right stick left for a backside 50-50. If you wanted to do a board slide or a rock to fakie, you just need to leave the sticks in the starting position. These types of slides and stalls are a great example for how you can exit by shifting your weight. In this case, I released the input for the front foot, shifting all of the weight onto the back foot, causing the front trucks to roll over the coping. To do a rock and roll, you'd enter the same way as a board slide or rock to fakie, but as you exit, you need to squeeze the relevant trigger to get the 180 rotation. The same thing applies for entering a lip slide, except you do a rotation into the slide rather than when exiting. Now for the big one, nose blunts. To enter a nose blunt, you need to put all these skills together. You need to use your feet inputs to get the rotation going and shift all of your weights to the relevant point. However, you also need to use the trigger to get the extra rotation needed. Note how I'm sliding the front foot's input from the top all the way to the bottom while squeezing the right trigger and releasing the rear foot's input as it gets close to the coping. This has been extremely difficult to manage, however I am now starting to get used to them with a lot of practice, so don't get disheartened if you're struggling with it. You're also able to pop into grinds and slides. I found this the easiest way of getting into a blunt slide if I'm honest, but it does work for any other lip tricks. As you get more comfortable with the controls, you can start to trick in and out of lip tricks easier, but I can't stress how long I've been practicing for these clips. I was originally asked to make this video shortly after the release. Apologies for it taking so long, but I wanted to try and make it as in-depth as possible. I know I haven't covered every possible trick, but I feel with this information you should be able to figure out how to do the specific tricks you want to.